I never thought I'd spend a night in jail because of a noise complaint about my doorbell. But Karen Hutchins, my neighbor and the self-appointed enforcer of our quiet suburban street, had decided that my new video doorbell was a public menace. And she wasn't going to stop until she proved it. It started innocently enough. I'd installed a smart doorbell with a camera after a string of package thefts in our neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just one of those standard ring-style devices that half the houses on our block already had. The doorbell played a pleasant two-tone chime when someone pressed the button. That's it. No blaring sirens, no musical numbers, just ding-dong. Karen lived 3 houses down, but somehow, she claimed she could hear it from her living room. Never mind that there were 2 other houses between us, or that she kept her windows closed with the air conditioning running year-round. According to Karen, my doorbell was destroying her quality of life. The first time she complained, she showed up at my door on a Tuesday evening. Karen, I need to talk to you about that doorbell. It's entirely too loud. I can hear it from my house, and it's giving me migraines. I apologized, explained it was set to a normal volume, and offered to show her the settings. She wasn't interested in solutions. She wanted compliance. If you're enjoying this story of what happens when entitlement meets consequences, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World for more tales of poetic justice. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this one ends. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen escalated. She started documenting every single time my doorbell rang. Mail carrier at 10 a.m.? Karen was there with her phone, recording. Food delivery at 7 p.m.? Karen emerged from her house like a ghost, filming from her driveway. She created a spreadsheet. An actual spreadsheet with timestamps, duration of the chime, and her personal assessment of the decibel level, which she estimated using what she called her very sensitive ears. She began filing complaints with everyone she could think of. First, it was emails to our local police department about noise violations. When they politely explained that a doorbell wasn't a violation of any noise ordinance, she filed complaints with code enforcement. When they told her the same thing, she tried the homeowners association, but our street wasn't part of one. So Karen decided to create her own evidence. She started claiming the doorbell was going off at all hours of the night, waking her up, preventing her from sleeping. She kept a journal. 2:15 a.m., doorbell rings for approximately 3 seconds. 3:47 a.m., doorbell rings again. This is harassment. The problem was, none of this was true. My doorbell had a camera, and it recorded every activation. Nobody was ringing my doorbell at 2 in the morning. Nobody was ringing it at 3:47 a.m. I tried reasoning with her one more time. I brought my laptop over and showed her the footage logs. See, Karen, here's every single time the doorbell was activated in the last month. They're all during normal hours, mail delivery, packages, guests. There's nothing here from the middle of the night. She glared at the screen, then at me. Your system must be deleting the evidence. I know what I heard. There was no convincing her. In Karen's mind, she was the victim, and I was the villain. Things got weird after that. Karen started calling the police non-emergency line almost daily. My neighbor's doorbell is causing a disturbance. My neighbor's doorbell is harassment. My neighbor's doorbell is a threat to my well-being. The police were patient at first, sending officers to talk to me, to verify there was no issue. They'd listen to the doorbell, confirm it was completely normal, and leave. But Karen kept calling. Then one Friday evening, she made the call that changed everything. I was inside making dinner when I heard a loud knocking. I opened the door to find 2 police officers, and they didn't look like they were there for a friendly chat. They asked if I was the homeowner. I said yes. Then they asked me to step outside. That's when one of them said, "Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest for harassment and disturbing the peace." My brain couldn't process it. A warrant? For what? The officer explained that Karen had filed multiple reports, had documentation of ongoing harassment, and had finally convinced the judge that there was enough evidence to issue a warrant. I tried to explain about the doorbell, about the camera footage, about Karen's false reports. They weren't interested in hearing it. You can explain all that to the judge, sir. Right now, we need you to come with us. They handcuffed me. Actually put handcuffs on me. In front of my house. In front of my neighbors. I could see Karen watching from her window 3 houses down, and I swear she was smiling. They drove me to the station, processed me, took my fingerprints, my mugshot, everything. I spent that night in a holding cell, sitting on a concrete bench, wondering how my life had spiraled this far out of control over a doorbell. I made bail the next morning. My brother came to get me, and the first thing I did was call a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I called Marcus Webb, one of the top litigation attorneys in the state. Marcus and I had gone to college together, and while I'd gone into software development and made a comfortable living, Marcus had become the kind of lawyer who made headlines. He was expensive, but I didn't care. Karen had just made this personal in a way I couldn't ignore. Marcus listened to everything. The doorbell installation, Karen's complaints, the false reports, the police calls, the arrest. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Give me a week. I need to pull some records and make some calls. But I think we can do better than just getting these charges dropped." I liked the sound of that. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, Marcus went to work. He subpoenaed my doorbell's complete activity logs from the manufacturer. He got statements from my other neighbors, all of whom confirmed they never heard my doorbell and thought Karen was being ridiculous. He pulled the police reports, every single one Karen had filed. And then he found something interesting. Karen had been filing false police reports for years. Not just about me. About other neighbors, about local businesses, about anyone who she decided had wronged her. She'd reported a teenager for playing music too loud. The music was at normal volume during the middle of the afternoon. She'd reported a local coffee shop for health code violations that didn't exist. She'd reported her own postal carrier for trespassing. He was delivering her mail. Karen had a pattern of weaponizing the police and the legal system to harass people. But Marcus found something even more interesting. Karen worked as a compliance officer for a mid-size pharmaceutical company. Her job was to ensure the company followed all regulations, documented everything properly, and maintained absolute integrity in their record-keeping. The irony was delicious. Here was Karen, whose entire career was built on honesty and accuracy, filing provably false reports with law enforcement. Marcus also discovered that I had options. The property records showed something fascinating. The small empty lot directly behind Karen's house, which backed up to an alley, was for sale. It was a weird parcel, too small for a house, not connected to any other property, basically useless for development. It had been on the market for 2 years with no interest. But it did have one interesting feature. It had legal access to the alley, and it was zoned for commercial use. I bought it. Paid cash. Closed in a week. Karen had no idea. The day of my court hearing arrived. I showed up with Marcus, and we were ready. Karen was there too, sitting in the gallery with a smug expression, probably imagining she was about to watch me get sentenced. The prosecutor started by presenting Karen's evidence. Her spreadsheet. Her journal entries. Her testimony about being woken up at all hours by my doorbell. Then it was our turn. Marcus methodically destroyed every single one of her claims. He presented the doorbell activity logs, certified by the manufacturer, showing 0 activations during any of the times Karen claimed. He played the actual video footage from my doorbell, time-stamped and unedited, showing the complete absence of any middle-of-the-night rings. He brought in my neighbors, who testified that they never heard my doorbell despite living closer to my house than Karen. Then Marcus did something beautiful. He presented evidence of Karen's pattern of false reports. Every frivolous police call, every baseless complaint, every instance of her weaponizing the system against innocent people. The judge's expression grew darker with each revelation. By the time Marcus finished, the prosecutor looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. The judge dismissed all charges against me. Then she did something I wasn't expecting. She held Karen in contempt of court for filing a false report and wasting the court's time. But Marcus wasn't done. He immediately filed a civil lawsuit against Karen for malicious prosecution, defamation, and emotional distress. My arrest record. My mugshot online. The night in jail. The legal fees. We were going after all of it. Karen's face went white. She tried to sputter some excuse, but the judge wasn't having it. Miss Hutchins, you have wasted this court's resources, you have caused the wrongful arrest of an innocent man, and you have demonstrated a pattern of abusing the legal system. I am referring this matter to the district attorney for possible criminal charges for filing a false report. We walked out of that courtroom, and I should have been satisfied. But I kept thinking about that empty lot behind Karen's house. I kept thinking about her smug face when they arrested me. I kept thinking about how she tried to ruin my life over a doorbell. Marcus noticed my expression. You've got an idea. It wasn't a question. I told him about the lot, about the zoning. He started grinning. How far do you want to take this? Pretty far, it turned out. I hired an architect and a general contractor. Since the lot was zoned commercial, I had options. I couldn't build a full business, it was too small. But I could build a structure. And that structure could serve a commercial purpose. After several consultations, we landed on the perfect solution. A cell phone tower. Not just any cell phone tower. A monopole tower, completely legal, fully permitted, and absolutely allowed under the commercial zoning. It would be 80 feet tall, covered in equipment from multiple carriers, and it would be positioned on the back corner of the lot. The corner that was approximately 20 feet from Karen's bedroom window. Now, cell towers are regulated by federal law. The Telecommunications Act prevents local governments from prohibiting them based on aesthetic concerns. Karen couldn't stop it. Nobody could stop it. As long as we met all the technical and safety requirements, which we would, the tower was happening. But I didn't stop there. The lot was just barely large enough that we could also install a small equipment shed for the tower's electronics. That shed would need cooling, which meant industrial air conditioning units. Running 24/7. With a very distinctive hum. We filed all the permits. Everything was public record, but I knew Karen wasn't the type to regularly check commercial building permits. She had no idea what was coming. Construction started on a Monday morning. Karen came out of her house when she heard the machinery, and I watched from a distance as she approached the construction crew. She was clearly confused at first. The lot was behind her house, but it wasn't her property, and there was nothing she could do about people building on their own land. She probably assumed it was going to be a shed or something minor. The construction crew was professional and ignored her questions. By Wednesday, she started to understand something bigger was happening when the concrete foundation was poured. By Friday, when the crane arrived to lift the first section of the tower, Karen was in full panic mode. She showed up at the construction site, demanding to know what was being built. The foreman, who I'd briefed on the situation, politely told her it was a telecommunications tower and that all permits were in order. She could verify that at the city planning office. I heard later that Karen spent that entire weekend at the planning office, frantically trying to find a way to stop it. But there was nothing. The zoning was commercial. The permits were valid. The setback requirements were met. Every single regulation was followed to the letter. By Monday, the tower was going up. It took 2 weeks to complete. 80 feet of galvanized steel, covered in antennas, microwave dishes, and equipment platforms. The equipment shed was installed with its industrial cooling units. The whole thing was professionally done, up to code, and completely legal. It was also impossible to ignore. From Karen's backyard, the tower loomed like a metal giant. From her bedroom window, she could see it in perfect detail. The constant low hum of the cooling equipment was audible but not quite loud enough to violate noise ordinances. It was just there. Always. A permanent reminder. But I still wasn't quite done. Remember that civil lawsuit Marcus filed? We pushed it hard. Karen tried to fight it, but her own documented history of false reports made it impossible to defend. She cost me money, time, reputation, and freedom. The settlement came through 3 months later. Karen had to pay my legal fees, compensation for damages, and a public apology printed in the local newspaper. Her employer, the pharmaceutical company, saw that public apology. They saw that their compliance officer had been found liable for filing false reports and malicious prosecution. They saw that she had a pattern of dishonesty. Karen was fired within a week. Turns out companies that depend on regulatory integrity don't love employing people who file false police reports. But the cell tower story had one more twist. The rental income from the carriers was substantial. Multiple companies paying for space on the tower added up to several $1,000s per month. That income was permanent, guaranteed by long-term contracts. I was making money from the very thing that had ruined Karen's peace and quiet. 6 months after the tower went up, I was checking my mail when I saw Karen outside her house. She was standing in her driveway, looking up at the tower, and her expression was this mixture of rage and despair. She noticed me watching and started walking over. I thought about going inside, but I was curious what she'd say. She stopped at the end of my driveway. Her voice was shaking. "You did this on purpose. The tower. You bought that lot just to put that thing behind my house." I didn't deny it. "Karen, you had me arrested over a doorbell. You filed false reports. You tried to ruin my life. The tower is completely legal, fully permitted, and commercially viable. Everything by the book." She just stared at me, and I could see her brain working, trying to find an angle, some way to fight back. But there wasn't one. "This is harassment. I'm going to report you. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to file a complaint." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Go ahead. But you might want to remember what happened the last time you filed a false report." Her face went through several emotions. Anger, frustration, fear, and finally, realization. The full scope of what I'd done was hitting her all at once. I hadn't just defended myself. I'd systematically dismantled her ability to harass anyone ever again. She'd lost her job. She had a legal judgment against her. She had a cell tower in her backyard that would be there for decades. And every single bit of it was completely legal. She'd weaponized the system against me, and I'd used that same system to create permanent consequences she could never escape. Her own tactics, her own rules, her own love of documentation and complaints had given me the roadmap to dismantle her piece by piece. Karen opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but nothing came out. She just stood there, staring at me, finally understanding that she'd picked a fight with someone who had the resources, the patience, and the creativity to turn her own weapon back on her in ways she never imagined possible. If you loved watching Karen get exactly what she deserved, smash that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World for more stories of entitled people facing epic consequences. Drop a comment and let me know what you would have done in my situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.